I hope others show up, but we will work with those that have faithfully shown up. Thank you for being here. And again, as we were saying, I know that it's all of you have a lot on your plates, just being in the classroom and doing whatever you do at the school. You have a lot on your plates, but with that in mind, we have to still remember, where you are, and you're almost through. You're in, and the last, you should be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, as they say, or my granddaddy used to say, you plow to the end of the road, and we got to plow to the end of the road. And so, and we're going to be, hey, Nari, we're going to be tough on you, and we have to be, because we've got those deadlines that's got to be reached, and they're going to be here before you know it. So if you get those hateful emails from me, or you get whatever, then still love me, because I know what I've got to do, and Dr. Revis knows what she's got to do too. And you'll appreciate it when we get on the other side of things. You may not appreciate it now, but you'll appreciate it on the other side of things. And just don't hate me for it. So that's it. Some of you still owe me work. I don't like that. Dr. Revis doesn't like it either. I need you to get it. I need you to take care of it. And you will find that that I went back, and if you owe me work, it's got a 0 in there at that point. I will look at your work when it comes in, and I'll make some changes then. But please don't make this a habit. You'll get behind and you cannot catch up. Dr. Revis, am I right? You cannot catch up in this class if you get too far behind, and you'll end up. And I don't want you in a 699 class because you were not able to finish the semester. You've worked too hard. You've come too far. Please do not let that happen.
Guys, this being your last semester, we have to have grades in early, because you're finishing up.
Yeah, and remember, like I said, you have 15 weeks, but you don't have 15 weeks. You've got 15 weeks with us, but you don't have 15 weeks to get all your work done. So that's why we have to push you. Okay, like I said, smile at us, love us, and talk about us, and then love us still. Okay, that's all we're gonna say on that one. I want to talk about. Let me see who Michael's there. I want to talk about our work with what I went over with the CAP last week. I've already given all the deadline. Nari, were you able to look at the video? Have you looked at the video yet? Okay, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. No, I had not had a chance to look at it yet. We've been full speed at work. However, I had already started my I have done actually my task 1 already. I started it way before class.
Okay.
I just haven't turned it in yet.
Okay, still go back and look at that video. That's very, very important, and make that a priority. In spite of how busy things are, you need to go ahead and make that a priority as soon as you can. Okay. As soon as you can after class tonight. Okay.
I will.
Dr. Revis and I received a strong message from Dr. Lamb over the weekend about the CAP, and apparently there have been some minor modifications or expectations. I don't know where this has come from, but that's neither here nor there. It's our responsibility to follow the lead of what they want. So what I want to tell you, let me pull it up, and I want to point out something that's going to make it. Okay. Let me see. Come on. Let me minimize that, and let me pull up. Okay, there it is. That's what I want to pull up. And Nari, since you were not here last week, in Blackboard, there is a whole section on things that will help you with the CAP. So these are some helpful hints that you'll find in there. But remember, we said that these are the 5 things throughout the 4 tasks of the CAP that you'll be addressing from the Teacher Working Conditions Survey. These 5 areas: empowerment, leadership, facilities, resources, and time. Now, previously, we have said to students when we were in 605, Dr. Revis and I, that, you know, once you address all of these in task 1, you have to. And then in the other task, you address they basically, you got all of them, and then it kind of narrows down, because by the time you get to your action plan, you may not want to address, you may not have wanted to have addressed all 5 of them. And we have allowed that in the past, because we said that, you know, that you can have too much that you're addressing. However, we were told that these 5 areas must be fully identified and addressed in all 4 tasks of the CAP. So this is what I'm telling you. Whatever you do, when you get to it takes care of itself in task 1, because you've got to talk about each one of them. But when you get to task 2, it's not as obvious. And I went back and I looked at some of the work that was submitted, and while it's inferred and it's in there, it's not obviously in there. So this is what I'm going to tell you to do. We don't want any evaluator to get to task 2 and say, oh, they didn't address those 5 areas that were in task 1. So this is what I want you to do. You put all that you want in there, but you make sure in all 4 tasks that you are addressing and identifying somehow these 5 areas. You write out empowerment. You show it in every one of these tasks. And when you get to task 4, which is your action plan, I'm going to tell you, your action plan must address all 5 of those areas. Dr. Revis, I think that that's the only way that we're going to get them through without it being a problem, is to say that we've got to see it in all 4 tasks. Do you agree?
I agree. And again, guys, you know, we didn't realize that this has been a shift in what the evaluators are looking for, but now that we know it, we're gonna do it. So
And it's not too late. It's better, you know, I'm glad that we know this now, rather than your work going to them and then it being sent back, or you being marked down because they're not seeing what they want to see. So make sure that they are clearly identified in all 4 areas. And when you do your action plan, I don't care what it is, you make sure that you address all 5 areas in your action plan from that Teacher Working Conditions Survey. Make sure that they're in there. Okay.
So, you know, an easy fix on task 2 would be that when you do a resurvey, just make sure you're resurveying from all 5 areas. So you've got something to write about.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a lot, 5 areas. You may ask 1 question from each area. You may ask 2 questions from each area. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you can go back and look at each of those areas, and you can see the ones that maybe were in the original survey, the ones that had the lowest scores. And you may want to just say, okay, I'm going to readdress all the lowest scores of all 5 of them in my resurvey. That's a good point, Dr. Revis. Thank you for saying that. And somehow, whatever you do, just tie it back into whatever we've got already telling you to look at in there. Tie those 5 areas in there, make them obvious. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Do you know what we want you to do? Okay, Nari?
Okay, when I went over my my teacher working condition survey, there were a few areas where there wasn't anything like below 80. So is there a
Okay.
specific number
Yeah,
we're looking
yeah.
for?
Dr. Lamb said that even if it's 85, he said there's room for improvement.
Okay.
So just look at your lowest areas.
Right.
So when you get to task 2, just focus on what's low.
But in each one of them,
Mhm.
I don't care if one of them, it looks like it's the best thing since sliced bread, you still address it, okay? Because
Okay.
they're going to look for it.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Dr. Revis, do you think I covered that enough?
Yeah, I think so. And as we move on and get into task 3, if you know, we'll talk about it again,
Right.
I'm sure, but yeah, I mean, there's no other way to say it other than, you know, I'm glad we learned about the change when we did,
Right.
guys.
Right. Shay, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question because I think I'm not sure if I am on the right track with task 2 because it says school environmental analysis. So is that not the same areas as empowerment and leadership and what we just did?
They are. You're just looking at them in a different way. You're based on what I understand, Dr. Revis, and you help me out with this, you've got to look at all 5 of those areas, but when you go to each of those analyses, you're looking at them, you're analyzing them in a different way, in a different capacity.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so explain to me what capacity, because I did it as how my teachers are interpreting the environment.
Yes, but look at it in all 5 areas. So when you do a resurvey, be sure
Yep,
you look at the lowest ones in each of the 5 areas.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, you need to get some qualitative data as well. And that's where you can do a small focus group. And a lot of people, when they do the qualitative data with the focus group, they'll use the same questions. But of course, when you have a focus group, and you of course can do that virtually, then you can get deeper into the explanations maybe as to why they feel that way. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
And
Yeah,
Shay,
okay, I got you.
and Shay, it can be your PLC. That can be your focus group. Don't make it hard.
Okay. All right. I just make sure because I did use those questions and I did a survey and I got information. I was like, well, is it, I don't know. Because then task 3 says to do it. It's, oh, wait, let me find it. I'm like, wait, I feel like I'm doing the same thing over again.
And it does seem that way. It does appear that way to a degree.
Right, because then task 3 says cultural competency analysis. And then again, it says school leadership in the section of teacher working conditions. So, but we did school leadership, but now we're just going to focus on the school leadership as the in task, and I skipped ahead. So task 3 said, teacher working conditions survey, we're looking under just school leadership. Am I just going too far to take care of 2 first?
Okay,
And I was like, wait, I feel like I'm doing that in task 2, but I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly what the definition of the environmental analysis versus the cultural analysis and making sure I'm on the right track when I'm doing my my narrative, that I'm explaining it the way that they want it to be explained through the eyes of the environmental analysis.
I think you said it perfectly.
I think you've got it. Don't overthink it though, okay?
You're overthinking it.
Yeah, don't overthink it. This is simple right here to help staff perceptions of the school environment. And when you look at the school environment, again, that's those 5 areas as it relates to school environment. Okay? When you
Okay.
go to the cultural competence, again, it's the culture of the school as it relates to those 5 areas. And again, a lot of it is going to kind of blend. But
Okay.
just try to find as much as you can to differentiate as much as you can. And sometimes it may not be a lot. So if it's not, don't overthink it. Just make sure that you've identified all 5 areas so that your evaluator knows that you are addressing them.
Okay, because it gives like a little blurb on number 3 of kind of what they give the definition of cultural competency.
Right,
I was just making sure I didn't overlap the environmental with that and
Right.
do it too soon. Okay.
And I don't think you will. I don't think you will. The way you said it lets me know that you are differentiating.
Okay.
Okay.
Good
So
questions though, Shay.
They are. Does everybody, I mean, you know what to do now. You know what direction that you need to go in from this point on. And those that submitted task 2 already, I'm going to go back in there and fix it so you can resubmit so that you can take care of what we talked about today. Because when you're submitting for our review, you should be able to send it in as many times as Dr. Revis and I would want you to send it in and look at it. So I'll go back and fix whatever the problem is with that. Okay. Okay. Well, Dr. Revis, before we go any further, let me stop the share on this. Your assignment this past week was you had to look at the different, and some of you owe me that assignment still. You had to look at the main difference between what a manager is and a leader is, based on your reading. I want us to just talk about for just a few minutes, what you learned from that activity, what you learned from your reading, and that there are distinct differences. There's a lot of people that they're great managers, but they may not be a great leader. So let's talk about that. What did you learn from this activity about the main differences between being a manager and a leader?
Manager am I on mute?
No, you're good.
Oh. I feel like a manager can be more of an organizer, putting people in the right places, setting the schedule and doing things like that, where they can put moving parts together, but may not be able to necessarily lead the people in the right direction to be, I guess, to focus towards the one goal of being like if you want to say, I think they talked about a lot of managers are in the industrial where they can make it work with the time and the pieces, but not really push the people to be on the same page.
That's good. And Shay, I think about you as a coach. You're a leader as a coach. Let's say that you're coaching girls basketball. Now you're the leader of the team, but don't you have managers helping you also with the team?
Yes,
they're
absolutely.
Not, okay, so what would be their role? You're the leader, but what would the manager be doing?
So the managers are taking care of the small tasks, like making sure the water and the uniforms are put together and all those things, and they're actually getting their lead from me.
Right, but they're getting it from the leader. Now, do you think good leaders have to be good managers too?
Yes. Or at least have to have some idea of what goes on in the situation and be able to give instruction and task out to the people who are actually going to be managing those things.
Good. Somebody else. What did you glean from this activity? Something different from what Shay would have said.
Dr. Stebbin, I'm going to jump in, but I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Shay said.
That's good, Matt. Go ahead.
Just wording it a little bit differently. And my Nordhaus book hasn't come in, but I did a little research online to try to stay up to speed. I think the manager manipulates resources. And you asked just a second ago, does a leader have to be a manager? I think that's a piece of the leadership portion. But more importantly, I think the leader is able to influence people. The manager manipulates resources, but the leader influences people.
I like that. That's good,
goal.
Matt. I like the way you said that. That's good. Good. Somebody else.
I like how there was a difference with emotion, that a manager reminds me more of like a factory and, you know, you moving the parts like Shay said, and you're not having any feeling behind it. And a leader cares about their people and is taking them along the ride and not just telling them what to do.
Okay, I like the way you said that, Mary. That's great. Okay, somebody else. Listen, and I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to go around, start with Rebecca. Rebecca, in one sentence, I want you to tell me, why do you want to be a leader? In other words, what is your why? Why do you want to be a leader?
I feel like my main reason is I see the need for certain change, and I want to make sure that people feel supported and making a difference.
Okay.
It all comes back to the kids.
Okay, Erica, why do you want to be a leader? What is your why?
My why is to basically, it goes back to being there for the students and supporting the students, but then I also want to support the staff so that they can help with the students' achievement and build a good morale within the school.
Okay, good. Areas?
Mine is very similar. I would like to invoke change, a systematic change. I think that we've gotten used to the status quo, and that's not going to work, especially for this new generation of kids that we are teaching. And with how diverse our world is becoming, I think that a change needs to happen, and that needs to happen from the top down. And so I want to be a part of helping that change happen.
Very well said. Thank you, Arias. Philip. Can you hear me, Philip?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. We had a football player.
That's okay. That's okay. And if you can't, then
No,
just
I
let me know. What is your why do you want to be a leader, Philip? You're already a leader, but why do you really want to be a leader?
To be honest, it's just the impact our youth. You know, to be able to lead in such a way that leaves an impact, but also to kind of help develop a school culture and kind of get our teachers aligned to be more open-minded and fall into stronger instructional changes. That's the only thing that when I was a young teacher that I see now is there's a lot of teachers that are stuck in their ways. And as we get through into new technology, new things, I wanted to be able to be a guy that leads from the front. I think everybody sees the picture of, you know, a leader and it's saying what to do and having people fall in line, and then a leader that actually gets down and dirty and boots on the ground with their people. And, you know, just for me, it's leading by example. I've always felt that was something that was strong for me, being able to tell my teachers, like, I need you to do this, but also to be boots on the ground in the classroom to assist them, to help get the best out of our kids, and having a stronger mentality of community and culture and just trying to have a better, stronger school year to year with the kids and leaving that type of impact.
Great, Philip. Shay, why do you want to be a leader in a different capacity?
A different capacity besides coaching?
Yes.
Um,
And
well,
a principal is a coach too. So
yeah.
just know that.
I don't know. I just feel like I have a lot to offer in the realm of just being a leader. I think my personality and the way I go about doing things and my ability to establish relationship goes a long way, especially as far as empowerment and building efficacy for our teachers. And then I think if I can lead the teachers in the way that I go, then it will be a positive and a contagious effect with our students. Like, I want our school to be booming. I want people to walk in the door. I mean, I know we're not going to be happy all the time, but I want them to want to be in our building. So I've never gotten up one day in my entire career and not wanted to go to work.
Wow.
And I
that's
think
great.
that if the teachers feel that way, we can get the students to feel that way. And then it will just trickle down to learning, and our youth will be just so much better.
That's great, Shay. Thank you for sharing that. Matt.
To impact our world for the greater good. I think if you look within a classroom teacher, I think there's a responsibility for leadership there. But as an administrator, I think you look at increasing the ability to make that impact.
Okay, great. Nari.
For me, when I made the decision, the first thing that came to mind was, how can I better impact my students? Because for me, it's about the kids. I think that some of the things are overcomplicated when it comes to teaching. Teachers are professionals and they need to be recognized as such. And I want to be able to support my teachers just as much as I support my students, because some of the things that they require, teachers are talented. They went to school, they're professionals. Let them teach. If you let them teach in the way that they know how, as long as they're teaching a standard, stop regulating exactly what materials they use. I just want to be that person who, okay, here's a way, and lead my teachers so that my students are learning in a way where it's most beneficial to them, not where you're just stuck reading from a book because somebody told you to. So I want to be able to impact my students so that they enjoy school.
That's great. Thank you. And I believe you will with that beautiful smile. Sasha?
Yeah, and not to, sound redundant, but yeah, that culture of the community, supporting the students. And I'm just going to reflect what I wrote in my paper. One thing was a lot of the teachers in my face-to-face school, I'm in a virtual school now, but they would always make comments saying like, oh, Dr. Scott, she don't send her kids out of the classroom. She don't send them out. And I teach secondary. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I got to prepare them for life after school. So if I send them out, what am I really teaching them? What coping skills am I teaching them? If they're on a job and they get upset, or if they just have a bad day, if they go ahead and walk out and storm out and do those types of things, they're probably going to lose their job. So if I just say, hey, go to OSS, go to ISS, or what have you, what am I really teaching them? So really, and within the last, I want to say like maybe 3 to 5 years that I've been teaching, it's been a lot more of mental health. We're seeing a lot more of that in our students. So really changing that culture, that perspective of teachers, and figuring out how can we support these kids to get through that, and those coping skills is really what I'm looking forward to do.
Okay, great. Well said. Mary?
My main reason for becoming a leader is to change the mindset of even the community. And I just want to be able to help lead and show people that our students can accomplish at a higher level. Oftentimes people make comments, teachers, community members make comments that our students cannot accomplish at the highest level they can. And I just want to make sure that we communicate that, our vision, our purpose, and be able to help our entire stakeholders, all the stakeholders, realize that our students are capable, and that even though they're from a small town, we can accomplish just like anyone else.
Amen. Daryl? Okay, Daryl, can you hear me? Okay, Michael?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So for me, I'm sorry, I'm driving home. But so for me, my why was to be to break systematic barriers for students who look like me. Like I wrote in my paper, I never had a great experience with school or teachers. I was always the talkative little black boy that didn't know anything. And so for me, it was always to break those systematic barriers for students that look like me, to let them know that they're just as brilliant and as beautiful as their skin is, no matter what color they are. And also to break those barriers that hinder all students from having an equal education. I think sometimes when we look at education, we don't try to attack the soul of our students. So for me, I'm real big on music. I'm real big on culture. If I tell you a song, you can remember where you were when it came out, what you were doing. And so I think we take some of those strategies and just speak to our students' soul and just build them up and break those barriers as we go.
Thank you for sharing that, Michael. That is so true. And Daryl was, are you there, Daryl? Daryl must have had to walk away. All of those are there you go, Daryl. Go ahead.
Hold on one second.
Okay. Okay.
I apologize. I'm at a curriculum night at my school.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry,
it's
Daryl. I'm sorry, Daryl. If it's not a convenient time, then it's okay. 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 That, Daryl, it's okay. If you're not at a convenient place, it's okay. But all of you, I can hear the passion in your reasons why. And that is that way, and we need that so much. All of you have I mean, there's a passion and a reason why. Dr. Revis, I'm going to close with you. Why did you want to be a leader?
Well, I've been a leader for so long, it's hard for me to think back, but like so many of you, I always had a passion for children and youngsters and felt like I could have a bigger impact as a school leader. My impact would spread farther and outreach to more children. And that's what we're there for. That's what schools are. It's about teaching and learning, but it's also about, as many of you talked about, it's about reaching the souls. It's a life-changing, education is a life-changing field. And, I think each and every one of us, if we really knew how powerful we were and impactful we were to our students, it would probably scare us to death. But we're in the life-changing business, and I just wanted to be able to spread my wings and spread my reach a little farther than just the classroom. And I guess that's what it was.
Yeah, that's right, Dr. Revis. And I'm going to conclude by very briefly saying that, first of all, I grew up in a great home, but we grew up my parents were textile workers. Both of them worked in the mills. And we grew up in what they called the Mill Hill. And back in the day, in the 50s, when I was born and growing up, if you grew up on the Mill Hill, society had earmarked you as being low achieving, as not being able to learn and do. So I grew up with that stigma because I grew up on the Mill Hill. But I'm going to tell you, my mama, and she didn't graduate from high school, but my mama still held us to high standards. And the way I was raised, I can remember when I was in the 5th grade, and then I'll stop with this. In the 5th grade, I made up my mind that there was a place in town, and it was called Wilkinson Drive. And that's where all the people that we thought were rich lived. And, I went to school with a lot of those people, but that's where they thought. But you know what I said when I was in the 5th grade? I made up my mind. I said, one day I'm going to own property on Wilkinson Drive. And that was when I started working. Some land became available, and my first purchase was the land on Wilkinson Drive, where I have lived for the past 33 years. So I'm just saying that there's reasons why, and I think about what Michael said. Michael, that was very, very, I like your passion and your vision. You want to make a difference, and it all goes back to you're reflecting back to our past determines many times the path that we take. And we can decide, it may not have been the best path, and we control whether that new direction is going to be a negative path or it's going to be a positive path. All of you have decided, I'm going to turn whatever it was around, and I'm going to make something good and positive out of it. You're going to make a difference in the lives of children and in the lives of people. And that excites me, Dr. Revis, that we're part of helping them get to that last stage before we turn them over to be able to do that.
As you were talking, now I didn't have every one of you in 601, but I had at least half of you. As you were talking, it really excited me to see how much you have grown over these past 2.5 semesters, and to see the articulation and to hear you talk about leadership in the way you do. That's why one of the reasons I love to teach is because I can see that growth in you as individuals and as professionals, and it's very rewarding. I am so glad that I get to be in this class with you guys.
Oh, me too. And it just excites me that, you know, that we're going to be able to put the period at the end of the sentence for you. So anyway, I'm going to stop. Dr. Revis will stop his sharing, and Dr. Revis has a good activity that we're going to conclude with tonight. But before I do that, I want to just remind you that remember that by Sunday of this week, you must submit task 1 of the CAP for final grade, but you've got to get approval on it first. And we need to see CAP task 2 for instructor review. Now, you can send things for Dr. Revis to look at too. It's okay for you to say, Dr. Revis, what do you think about this? You know, whatever. So you can reach out to her as well. And then just a reminder that assignment 2 is also due, and this is from the Glickman book. If for some reason you're still waiting on your textbooks, you need to let me know, and then you'll have to make up these assignments. But you just need to let me know if you're still waiting for your textbooks to come in. But Dr. Revis is going to present to you at this time, or go over with you an assignment. And you can find this in Blackboard under session 2 as well, all of this information. But Dr. Revis, we'll turn it over to you at this time.
Okay. As I was listening to you talk, guys, I thought, well, you probably know all this already, but you have a packet of materials under week 2, and it's called What Great Principals Do Differently by Todd Whitaker. If you've not had a chance to roll your sleeves up and look at that material, take some time to do that. It is just so full of great information. I am just going to touch on some highlights. And Dr. Stedman, please feel free to jump in at any time. Well, Whitaker likes to use Dwight D. Eisenhower's definition of leadership, which is the art of getting others to do something that you want done because they want to do it, which, you know, is the same thing almost that John Maxwell says. And when I read John Maxwell's definition, gosh, you guys were right on it. It's about influence, nothing more and nothing less. And a lot of people will say when they read these 2 definitions, wait a minute, that sounds like manipulation. Well, I guess manipulation is a little harsh, but what leadership is, it's influencing people to do things that ordinarily wouldn't want to do on their own, to try new things, to expand their ways of thinking, to be collaborative if they've never been before. It's just getting people on board with your vision. That's what leadership is. Getting somebody to do something you want them to do because they want to do it. Making them think it's their idea. But catching your enthusiasm is just unbelievably rewarding. So here's some highlights from that reading. And again, I'm hitting the highlights. It is a good read. It's an easy read. I just encourage you to look at that. First of all, Whitaker proposed that the principal is the filter. One of you said something about, I want to go in and be upbeat. I want people to want to be there. I want people to want to work here. I want our students to want to be here. You know, the principal is the filter and sets the tone for all that. And it all depends on how the principal presents issues and presents himself or herself. If as the principal, when somebody asks you, how are you doing today? You know, the answer is, I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here today. How is your day? That sets a tone that you want to be at work, Shay. You want to be there and you want to make a difference while you're there. The principal is awfully powerful. When you think about how powerful you are as a teacher in a classroom, multiply that by all the classrooms. Your persona is going to be filtered through the whole school. What you talk about, people are going to think is important. If you talk negatively about the children that you have in school, your teachers will talk negatively about them too. You set the tone for all that. If you sneeze, the school catches a cold. And it's unbelievable to even hear teachers say the same thing I've heard principals say. They will start mimicking those words. So be very careful. Always be positive with everything that's happening with you in your school, with your teachers, your students, your parents. Never talk negatively about your students or your parents. They are who they are. And our parents are sending the best kids they have to school. So let's approach everything positively. Raise the praise and minimize the criticize. And this is one thing that Whitaker's really big on, finding opportunities to find someone doing something right. And I think sometimes novice principals are afraid to praise for fear that people will start slacking, or they won't take me seriously, or they'll think I'm just buttering them up for the hammer to drop. But here are 5 things that Whitaker says you can do to help make praise meaningful. Number 1, it has to be authentic. And authentic just means it has to be true. It needs to be specific. You know, don't just say good job. Be very specific. I really liked the activity that I saw your students engaged in when I came by your classroom. I really hope you share that with some of your colleagues. It has to be immediate, immediately after you see that activity. It has to be clean. And that means no ulterior motive, no backhanded compliments. It's clean. And, you know, for the most part, those kinds of things need to be private, but that doesn't mean that you don't do shout outs to people who do wonderful things in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Never, ever be afraid to praise.
And Dr. Revis,
Right.
this can be a part of your walkthroughs. You know,
Yes,
this is a really,
exactly.
your walkthrough should be more positive than negative.
Oh, definitely. And you have to think of you as coaching and coaching your teachers, because what you're doing as a principal, you're teaching teachers now. You're coaching teachers, guys. And it's not a gotcha coach. You're there to support them, to help them be the best teacher that they can be. You know, one of your biggest jobs is to raise the level of teaching performance all the way throughout the building. And it's about people. It's not about programs. And we want to hire great teachers. Now, I know right now your principals are struggling to hire teachers. I don't think it's going to be like that always. But even in these tough times to fill vacancies, we want to hire the best teachers that we can hire, not just to fill a spot. And we teach the teachers. We give them great feedback to help them grow. We put them with a partner. We make sure that we're having PLCs on a regular basis so that teachers are collaborating around good teaching instruction and around student learning. And lastly, you need to understand your high achieving teachers. You want to know who they are and you want to understand them. It's very important that you put them teaching the things that they need to be teaching. You know, you've heard Dr. Lamb say, you got to get the right people on the bus and you got to get them in the right seats. And that's true. That is so true. When you're making decisions, and you make them all the time as a leader, a school principal makes, I would hate to say how many decisions a school principal makes in the course of a day. Some of them are just minuscule things. But when you're making those big decisions, you need to think about what is the purpose, and will this plan actually accomplish the purpose? But here's the key to what Whitaker proposes. How will the most positive and productive people feel about this? He proposed that too often we implement policies and administrative procedures and programs based on what we think our most negative teachers will like or how they will respond, because we know they're going to squawk. And many times that makes us reluctant. We don't need to worry about those people. What we need to worry about is how our most positive and productive people will feel about these new ideas, these new innovations, this new procedure. And I want you to, if you don't read anything else in this article, read the section on power plays of difficult employees. I promise you, one of the most difficult things you will deal with will be difficult employees. Am I right, Dr. Stedman?
Absolutely.
And as a leader, again, don't give them credibility. Don't let them rule your school. Don't let them drive what you do, because those negative people are going to be negative no matter what you do. So don't worry about it. You need to move forward and judge your moves through the eyes of your most positive and productive people. But read that section. I think you'll enjoy it. And lastly, and I'm just going to stop with this, always, always, always treat people with dignity and respect. Anybody you come into contact with, whether it be your students, parents, teachers, community leaders, community members, always treat them with dignity and respect. And that means you never get into an argument with them. You never, ever yell, and you never use sarcasm. Because when you do those three things, any of those three things, you lose respect. They lose respect for you. And you're going to have to take angry parents coming in your office. And you just need to remember, they're not really angry at me personally. They're angry at the situation. They could be angry for an incident that happened when they were in school. But you never get into an argument, you never yell, and you never use sarcasm. You can always say, I'm sorry that happened. You know, when you're a sitting administrator, there are going to be times when teachers mess up. I know you want to support your teachers, but sometimes they don't make good decisions. And that's okay, because you know what? They're human. And it is okay to say to parents, I am sorry that happened. I am sorry that that happened to your child. Now, it doesn't mean you don't follow up with a conversation with that teacher. And it doesn't mean that you don't ask that teacher from their perspective what really happened. But never, ever, and this has always been how I am, I'm not going to support a teacher who's crawled out on a rotten limb. I'm not. I'm going to say to that parent, that teacher made a mistake. And if it happened the way you say, and I'm going to talk with them, then that I cannot support. Now, a lot of administrators feel differently about that, but I have learned in my experience when I use that approach with parents, they don't want the teacher fired. They just don't want it to happen again. And neither do you. But anyway, I took a little trip to Pittsburgh, but just remember how powerful what you say, how you act, and what you do, how the trickle effect can have, what the trickle effect can be on your school climate, on how teachers treat each other, and on how teachers treat your children.
Your body language will tell a lot too. You need to be careful with your body language.
Exactly.
You know, when you're talking with people, when they're leaning in, not folding your arms in front of them, not having that grimace face or whatever, those are things that you've got to remember because that helps diffuse a lot of volatile situations just based on you will be the one that can solve a lot of problems easily, just how you approach it and how you appear and how you handle things. So, you know, just remember that you're the key to a lot of of things being solved easily
And
as an
I was,
administrator.
and I was only an elementary principal for 1 year, but it's very easy in elementary school. I think it was for me to at first, I thought some of the parent concerns were very trivial, but it's not through my eyes. I always have, I learned very quickly. I needed to take their concerns to heart. Because what I may think is trivial was not trivial to that child or those parents, or
And-
they wouldn't take the time to come in and talk to me.
And it wasn't. So you've
Exactly.
got to remember that. Thank you, Dr. Revis. Some very, very good pointers. that is an excellent article, and we encourage you to take the time to read it yourself. Okay, what questions?
Could I
Go ahead.
ask you a quick question, y'all?
Sure.
How often would you guys say you've had to write up teachers or put teachers on action plans?
That didn't happen a whole lot with me. Now Sasha, I would find ways to very discreetly even handle situations sometime that I knew needed to be handled. I would see them, I said, come in and talk to me about something. And a lot of times I would lead into something else. I didn't even start out with the topic. I would talk about something else, and I'd say, while I've got you here, I need to talk with you about something. And then I would lead into it. But I tried to the best of my ability to never attack it or attack the person. And most of the time, it would work itself out by me doing it that way. Now, there have been on rare occasions where I just had to deal with it. And I have sent people home before. I have told them, I said, you're not staying here like this. I sent them home. And I said, when you can come back and you can act right and you can talk with me right, with respect or whatever, I said, then you can come back. I said, but you make that decision. I said, I need you to go home.
Okay.
And Sasha, I think for me, I kind of am a Pollyanna. Okay. So I think teachers walk in my building wanting to do a good job. I think they're bringing their best to the table. I don't think Miss Smith down the hall is purposely being an awful teacher, even though she may be. I want to coach. I'm going to pick small steps for improvement. I'm going to, get my instructional coach to work with her. Now, she's going to know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to help her be more effective. And, they're doing the best they can do. I think. I don't think anybody comes in just purposefully wanting to do a bad job. But I think you've got to work with them. And then at some point after you've done everything you know to do, at some point, you may have to formalize that into an action plan. I tell you, I have had more experience having to dismiss what we call classified employees, your non-certified employees, your custodians, your cafeteria workers, those kind of. I've had to do more of that than I ever had to do with teachers.
Me too. And I
But
go ahead, Dr. Revis.
no, that's fine. Go ahead.
I don't remember what I was going to say now, but anyway, I messed up before.
But I think I think it's about teaching teachers, and your job is to help them improve. And if you're an instructional leader, that's going to be your main focus.
I know what it was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You
go ahead now.
I had, any of you that have children, or if you don't have children, you've had children in the classroom. Every one of them's different. Every one of them's different. And if you've got your own personal children, my mama always said there were 4 children. She said, I love them all the same, but I love them differently. That's an oxymoron. But the reason being, all 4 of us were different. We all had different personalities. And as the leader of the school, you've got to recognize that every teacher in your school has their own unique personality. Your job is to relate to those personalities. You can't treat them all the same. You've got to figure out how you need to handle Miss Smith or whatever based on their personality, and you learn that. You take the time to learn that about your teachers. Learn things about them, and difficult people learn about their families. You don't have to get into their deep business, but learn about their families or their children or whatever, and take the time to say, well, what is so and so doing now? Every now and then take a minute just to have conversation with and build those relationships. I promise you, they will take you further than you'll realize if you'll build those relationships with them.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay. Any questions? Does everybody know what you've got to do for the rest of this week and where you've got to be between now and next Wednesday? Everybody have an understanding of things? Okay. Any questions about anything? Great class. Thank y'all for being so transparent and sharing tonight. I like this. Okay, Nari?
There was a third book that you said that if we didn't get it, we wouldn't be able to take the test or something.
Yes, that
Did
is.
we get that through the school or?
No, you order that through anybody that's ordered their book already. Where did you get your book from?
I got mine on Amazon. It was like $15.
Amazon.
Okay.
And yeah, and make sure don't get a used one. You have to get a new one to be able to get this in the back.
And make
Okay.
sure it's hardback.
And I'm glad you asked that, Nari, because that reminds me, today is the last day you can go in and opt out of being charged that Bulldog Bundle textbook fee. Excuse me.
Right.
So if you have bought your books from Amazon, you need to go in and opt out of that. And today's the last day to do it.
Okay, and that's in your Blackboard account.
Okay.
Okay. Good question, though. Any other questions? Okay, guys, we will see you next Wednesday. Okay.
Have a good week, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.